Weekly wrap number 16. Thanks for joining us. Adam Bryant here and Jay Kavik, both from Walk the Talk Legacy. So we've had a huge week since our last little podcast that we've done, and a lot's happened. We've been to Gold Coast, trained at a few different gyms down that way, spent a bit of time on the beach, just going over some new ideas, and yeah, it's been really good.
Good little working environment. I mean, that's the best thing I think that I've always explained to Jake about technology is it allows us to be pretty much anywhere, and you know, we can still deliver the same quality content and you know have access to our mentees. And yeah, no, I really like where technology is going and our ability to really spread the wings. So
yeah, oh, it's good. I found on my way back from Gold Coast, I was just pumped after like resetting, refreshing, and I was just pumped, couldn't wait to get back and get back into it.
Yeah.
Look after our clients and keep working on what we're working on behind the scenes, which is pretty cool.
Good things bubbling behind the scenes.
Yeah. So how's your week been, nutrition and training wise?
Yeah, week's been very interesting. One, there was just a slight little niggle again, and Jake saw how devastated I was when we were doing legs. Normally you'd be cheering that you wouldn't have to do a few leg exercises, and we were going through barbell alternating lunges. And again, I'm about as flexible as a steel pole at the moment, and it was the last set, just a little bit of a niggle. So basically the last couple of weeks been doing some BFR or blood flow restriction training, and I found it's been absolutely fantastic. First time this morning squatting again. It just feels so good to be able to do some quality movements once again. Training and food, I've got no other option but to stick to it. There is no variance except for when you and I went down to the Gold Coast, and I actually looked at Jake and just said, man, how cool is this? Like, we were making wraps and burgers and all sorts of things for dinner, and then breakfast I got on the Wheat Bix train, and you know, it took all my frozen meals down with me, so it was nice and easy. I was there from Friday till Monday, so I was gone for quite a considerable amount of time, but made it all work for me. Everything's been on song, and I think since the 26th of March I'm down about 6 or 7 kilos now, and strength's still there, food's still high, no cardio. I think I've got about 17 to 18 weeks to go. I've got a diet break next week, which will be something that we touch on in future in relation to why utilise certain things whilst dieting for certain periods of time to reset the body and hormonally. So yeah, all in all, honestly, I've got nothing to complain about. I think it's just into 8 to 9 weeks of prep now. Mornings get a bit tough, getting up in the morning, especially a little bit colder, but honestly, if that's all I've got to complain about,
yeah,
I think things are
pretty good.
pretty
So you're feeling pretty good?
Yeah.
Energy levels? And
Every now and then, but I'm only just scratching the surface as far as calories are concerned. Everything's still high, so it's not really even considered being in comp prep. It doesn't feel like it. Training's tough. It's going to get a whole lot tougher being able to do legs once again. So there's a slight little delay there. But all in all, you know what? I've got nothing to complain about. It's not easy by any means, but I think the other thing too that I've really embraced is being able to go to social gatherings, and I just had another wedding. This is my second wedding in 8 weeks that I went to, and not one drop of alcohol. I was there till about 7 o'clock at night, and just watching everyone, all the events unfold when alcohol is in the equation. But yeah, it's good fun. It's really good to sort of bite the bullet and get used to going to events alcohol free, and yeah, I get really chuffed that I can do that as well. And I'm not going to miss out on, or I'm not going to be a hermit through this period. I just don't want life to stop just for everything but comp prep. So all is good. Double thumbs up from me. What about you, Jake?
Sounds good.
What? Let's explain to these guys what happened this morning for squats.
For squats, so I was going for a PB. I think it was 155 or something, and then come down, and my brand new boardies just split completely. First rep.
So yeah, obviously it's a good thing for us guys when we start splitting shorts. You know,
when you buy your pants on Sunday.
Oh, it was, yeah, we got some footage of it, so no doubt some of you have already seen it. It was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
what about training, food? How you finding it?
Training's been good. This is going to be one of my topics this week as well. Guys, I found out that I have to, or confirm that I'm getting surgery next month on the 27th.
Yep.
So that sort of set me off to a slow start last week, just motivation-wise. I was just like, why am I even doing this when I'm going to have 3 weeks off? And yeah, it just really slowed me down to start with. And the biggest thing was just sort of going through the motion, and I've got my app where I compare last week's weight, so I could just try and at least hit that and try and get better, but mindset just wasn't the same as it usually was. And I just haven't really experienced that since I've been training, because I'm always just going hard and always in a good headspace. So that was different to experience, but yeah, other than that, it's been really good.
I think the other thing too, and touching on that, is that obviously from my hernia operations and what I experienced through there, it's always been, every single time, whether it be a little niggle, whether it be an operation, whether it be some sort of hurdle, it's like a slingshot effect. It's like whatever that it is that sort of pulls you back, you end up surpassing it and then some every single time. So I think, and speaking for you as well, is that every time that we've experienced some sort of injury or setback, it's always helped us sort of go to that next level again. Yeah. It might, take X amount to get on an even keel to where you were last time, but you'll surpass that tenfold. And obviously from the weights and poundages you're consistently lifting, I think the aim, or your aim up until surgery, is to do the absolute best you can, because recovery is going to be quicker.
Yep. And
muscle memory, once you get there, the body has a great ability to be able to remember what it's already been through as well. Hence, people have got a long training history that have had time off.
Yep.
So I think if anything, that's sort of going to add another sort of dimension to you physically and mentally as well.
Yep. So, yeah, cool. I watched a few videos that helped as well, just staying, or looking at the positives, picking apart positives for anything that happens. So with your squats, you could have said, okay, cool, give your central nervous system a rest and work on blood flow restricted stuff.
Yep.
And then get back into it in a few weeks and good to go again. So that sort of stuff, or that way of thinking, I think, just sets you up long term for sort of success for whatever you're doing. So
let's touch on injury and motivation and what your topic as far as today. Let's really go down that avenue, because this is a very, very common topic. Obviously, a lot of people, when they're pushing the boundaries with training and sort of realizing their limitations and their potentials poundage wise, you're always going to expose yourself to this type of potential hazard that will come ahead. Operations, you name it. I mean, there's a couple of the guys that have made unbelievable transformations that have got shoulder ops and things coming ahead. So we'll touch on how do you plan to sort of work around it, and what advice can you give to the guys out there?
I think one of the biggest things is having a plan to start with. If I just went into it and then after I'm just like, oh, now what? I think I'd be screwed. But the plan is nutrition's probably the most important thing. If I can just keep that in check, then I'll be fine when I come back. So I'll drop the calories a little bit, because I'm not going to be training for a few weeks, and then after sort of week and a half, 2 weeks, I'll be able to do some legs and stuff, so BFR and just without the compound movements.
Yeah.
So it's only really a week and a half that I'll be missing out on training, and then just smash calves and legs for the next sort of week and a half before I'm good to go again. And then just think of the positives again, so how much time that's going to free up for me, that I can work on the business, look after clients better, take a bit of time off just to refresh and sort of set some bigger goals when I'm actually back. And then from now to surgery, instead of just letting things go downhill because I'm having a few weeks off, I'm going to go as hard as I can, get a lot of big compound movements in there, try and set as many PBs as I can, like this morning for squats. And then surgery is my time to rest, and I'm going to feel like I've really earned that rest period. So that's my plan for it.
And maybe you could use that spare time wisely to go do some retail therapy and buy some reinforced pants as well.
Yeah, I might do that. I might learn to sew or something, so I can sew up all the boys' pants and stuff.
Oh dear.
So what do you think of that? Because you just went and had surgery started this year, and that put you out for a few weeks
Yep.
and stuff. So
I think you hit the nail on the head as far as having a game plan going in. A lot of people really tend to lose the plot, especially when they find out either they've got surgery or they've got an injury. Whereas exactly as Jake said, it's been able to turn it into a positive and go, well, hang on a second, what I'm gonna learn through the journey. There's other training options as far as a recovery period. What Jake's going to gain as far as having time off. One, his level of appreciation for training is just going to go through the roof. And two, is it's just going to block out a little bit of extra time that he can work on his business, and not only that, study and other things that sometimes when the cheese is off the cracker from training so hard, it's very hard to commit and put as much time and effort into it. So the first thing that happened a few weeks back 2 weeks back when I had that adductor strain was I'm like, oh, well, it is what it is, and I just adjusted training straight away, and I knew what I needed to do to work around it. Yeah. And the first thing as well is Jake's like, dude, you have to start looking at flexibility side of things as well. So sometimes you've got to learn the hard way a few times to really drill it into you. So I do, again, this morning was probably no exception. We got straight into it. But normally I've been learning a lot of mobility exercises and things with the foam roller, and I'm definitely going to pay a lot more attention to it. And it's actually opened up my educational base on rehab and mobility. So I just think that I'm learning a lot more about that and how to work around certain injuries. And it's not the end of the world. I mean, hey, it is what it is. Stressing about it and being down about it's not going to do anything to change the situation at all. It was like surgery, and going back, this is good too, because obviously I can help Jake through his upcoming surgery and recovery, is that there's always a way around it, and there's always positives that you can take from the situation. So I think a lot of people they tend to fall apart and don't know how to handle these types of scenarios and adversity in general. It's like someone going, oh, I've got this and this on, I'm just going to wait till the time is right. Yeah. It is never, ever, ever going to be a right time. So, it's just understanding the surroundings and being around the right people and educating yourself and just being able to turn that whole scenario into a positive learning experience, definitely. Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. The last thing too was keeping myself accountable over that. So doing my check-ins still, obviously. Might even do it 2 times a week just to make sure and put a little bit more pressure on me to just stay on top of nutrition, because that's the biggest thing that I'm sort of worried about, losing track of that. But yeah, otherwise should be right.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So what were you going to go over today?
I really wanted to talk on sodium. Sodium intake in foods and the recommended daily allowance, and just a general scope on sodium. And it's actually got a little bit of a bad rap as far as too much sodium is going to be, you're going to be at risk of this and blood pressure problems and heart issues. Sodium is essential for bodily function. Everything from heart to blood volume to cell structure and function. It has such a big job, but what happens is that with a lot of the studies that have been done with sodium, it's been high sodium intakes were also connected with people on high calorie intakes, high fat intakes, and when you start breaking down the data, you find that there's no real connection as far as sodium being detrimental for the body, bar those who are obviously a free-for-all calorie intake and just no structure or guidance. And that's where a lot of the studies associated with sodium intake had probably given sodium a bit of a bad rap. But the other thing too is that a lot of people automatically think, oh, I can't have sodium, I'm going to hold fluid, I'm going to put on weight, and that's the whole, the vibe that's connected with sodium as a whole. And I've experienced this as well. I wasn't even sourcing my foods back in the day because I was worried about the whole sodium thing and holding fluid, and it's actually quite the opposite. Now, the RDA, the recommended daily allowance, is about 2,400 milligrams of sodium a day, which is, it's not much. It's not heaps, but it's not low as far as a proper intake, as far as keeping the body regular as far as what it requires to do certain bodily functions as far as sodium as a whole. But the very interesting thing that happens, and this is all good and said in the general community, but also in the bodybuilding community as well, is that if you don't eat enough sodium on a daily basis, you drop sodium out, the body self-regulates and the kidneys don't excrete as much sodium as it would normally, because sodium is so closely tied into blood pressure and the heart, etc. So the body has a very, very close monitor on sodium levels within the body. So if you actually eat less sodium, your body will excrete less. If you eat more sodium, or you consume more sodium on a daily basis, your kidneys will excrete more. So there's this whole regulational process that happens. But what I'm trying to say is that if you underdo sodium, there's actually a hormone called aldosterone in your body that triples within a few days. And it actually makes you hold on to fluid and look a lot more fluidy and hold on to water. So
that's released when you don't have enough sodium? Or
when you don't have enough sodium, the body self-detects this straight away, and a hormone gets excreted called aldosterone. Yeah. And its job is to basically conserve and prevent the body excreting sodium, and as a result as well, you end up looking more fluidy as such. So what ends up happening is that over a few days, if you are consuming a high sodium diet, over a few days your body will then self-regulate and learn how to excrete enough sodium to what's coming in. So when you're consistent with your sodium intake as well, your body will end up regulating over a couple of days, and your sodium levels will end up balancing itself out anyway. So what happens to a person that goes out and eats a meal that is high in sodium on the weekend, that is used to having a high sodium intake on a daily basis, the weight fluctuation and the fluid retention is not as prevalent or not as noticeable, and the body's used to regulating it as such. Yeah. Whereas if you've got people that aren't consuming enough salt or enough sodium on a daily basis, and they go out and consume a high sodium meal, as a result the weight fluctuations can be quite considerably noticeable, as in up to a couple of kilos as well, and fluid retention. And because of this is where the whole actually bad rap on sodium is just going to help me hold fluid, and I'm going to put on weight or I'm going to hold fluid due to my sodium intake as well. So what I'm trying to say is the body just likes consistency. So if you're consistent at consuming a reasonable intake of sodium, again, I'm sometimes around that 5 to 7 to 8,000 milligrams a day, and my body's used to it, and it's the leanest I've ever been as far as that consumption. And when I go and have a high sodium meal, it doesn't even affect me. Whereas if I was on really low sodium, I would be affected and my weight levels would fluctuate quite considerably. But my body's used to a good considerable intake. I salt and sauce every single meal. My body's used to that consistency as well, because sodium is an essential and critical ingredient as far as the body's regulatory processes, blood volume, cell structure and function. And also sodium is very, very important because it helps with the transporter to chuck carbs inside your muscles. All right? So if you're not eating enough sodium, your ability to store glycogen or stored carbohydrates or stored energy is not as effective either. So what I'd basically say is that just choose something that works for you on a regular basis. Know that if you are going to jack your sodium levels up that little bit further, you probably might notice it the first day or so, but then it'll balance out and you'll find that your weight levels will sort of start to even out as well. So don't be scared that it's going to be a long-term thing if you're not used to having a high salty meal for once, or that cheat meal as such. So I dare I say, sodium, again, some people are used to consuming quite a considerable amount on a daily basis. The only people with blood pressure problems and issues with the kidneys, they will know as far as that. It's 5 to 10% of the population that should just be wary as far as their daily sodium intake. But apart from that, sodium will not. If you actually don't consume enough, that's when you'll end up holding a lot more fluid as well. So keeping it consistent. Again, the recommended daily allowance is around that 2,500 milligrams a day. But again, I'm around that 5 to 7,000 milligrams a day, and again, it's not affecting me on a body fat level or performance. If anything, it's helping with blood flow, blood volume, and performance as a whole.
Yeah, cool. So, I actually had a question yesterday. It's funny that that's your topic. What should I do with sodium this weekend if I want to look my best at the beach? That was my question yesterday.
Yeah.
And just from previous talks with you, I just said keep it consistent. Don't make any drastic changes.
Yeah.
Just from what you've told me before. So would you stand by that, or
keep the water up?
Yeah.
Keep the sodium regular. Don't change a thing
the
when
other
you
thing
start.
was water. She's been having 9 litres a day because she's heard that's what we do in peak week, but she hasn't been dieting or anything. So I just said, just be consistent. So 4 litres a day. So just nice and high. Keep your sodium the same. It's not compress or anything. It's just a the beach.
The worst thing to flatten you out and make your whole fluid is reduce your fluid intake and reduce your sodium intake. If you've been consistent with those variables on a daily basis, you changing those and reverting, your body's basically going to go into a survival state where you're going to be more likely to hold fluid and look terrible for it. So as far as sodium and water variables, I just say keep it as consistent as possible. If you're already looking good, there's not much you can change within a few day period. It's like people want to get shredded and lose 7 kilos in 7 days, and I mean, at the end of the day, if you're looking good already, don't start messing with those variables, especially if you've got some sort of event on the weekend. And just be consistent. The body likes consistency, and it's very good at regulating its sodium levels within the blood sodium levels. And if you don't consume enough, your body will release that anti-diuretic hormone that will actually make you hold and retain fluid as well.
Yeah, cool.
So the first things first is that know that if you do start salting your meals and be consistent with it, maybe the first day or so, that you'll experience that sort of weight increase, but then you'll find it'll come back down and balance itself out.
So same with drops. If you drop, will you experience the same? Or?
If you drop, yeah, it normally takes a good couple of days for your body to regulate itself, but I wouldn't go too low, because that's when the body tends to go in a survival state where it will actually hold on to more fluid in the process as well. So,
alright, cool.
All good.
What are your plans for this week, training-wise, nutrition?
Training-wise and nutrition, I've got a diet break next week. Nutrition-wise, just keep sticking to my macros, eliminate any variables, make sure my food's prepped and on song, just practicing what I preach.
Yep.
And we should have a new nice backdrop behind here next time we do our filming as well.
Yep. That's exciting.
So what about you, mate?
As I said, I'll be training my ass off until my surgery, which I'm really looking forward to. So making sure we're getting PBs every time I train. Avoiding injury, and nutrition needs to be on point this week.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. All right.
I think that's it for the week, guys.
Hope you enjoyed, guys, and we'll be back with weekly Wrap 17 very soon.
Awesome.